Hi, everyone. I'm Keisha Williams. I am here with Dev, the GM of AI at Rubrik. How is your day going?
Going well, Kesha. Thanks so much for having me on.
I am super excited to be here with you. I have a lot of great questions for you. So, the first question I have is many leaders tell me they do not have a clear picture of what their AI agents are doing or what they can access. Why has visibility become such an important problem? And how does Rubrik Agent Cloud help solve it?
Yeah. And so this was actually a problem I think we discovered rather than maybe had a thesis on even early on. Let me answer the second part of your question first, and then I'll talk about why maybe it's an important problem.
Okay.
So how does Rubrik Agent Cloud actually address the observability concern? Rubrik Agent Cloud started with a feature that we called AI Agent Rewind. It's
Okay.
basically an ability to undo a destructive action that an agent may have taken on any system that Rubrik protects. As a data resilience and protection company, we back up some of the world's most important data.
Right.
Rewind is a way to connect that core heritage back to the AI agent future.
Okay.
In order to be able to rewind actions, we needed a good map for what were the agent actions that were actually happening.
Right.
And so we built something that we called Agent Map, and then something we called the Agent Inventory,
Okay.
where we would automatically scan agents and then start to understand what were the actions that they were taking so we could rewind them. We went to enterprise IT and security leaders talking about rewinds, and they loved rewind. It
Right.
was a very
It's
differentiated
my
feature in the
favorite
market.
feature.
Totally. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit more about it
Right.
shortly. But one of the big things I wanted to actually underscore was a lot of enterprise and IT leaders told us this is an amazing feature. The
Right.
problem I have today is I can't even tell you what agents I have running in
Oh,
production,
wow.
or I don't know what tools and data they have access to.
Right.
And so that was a really present, top of mind issue. And I think the reason to your initial question, why observability is so important,
Hmm.
is because you can't govern, you can't improve, and you can't fix anything that you aren't able to see. And so these leaders are responsible for what AI is happening, what AI is doing inside of their organizations,
Right.
but they might not always be aware of the intricacies of each system, and they don't actually have a product that maybe provides that capability. So that's where Rubrik Agent Cloud actually started to evolve beyond Rewind and to encompass a broader set of capabilities, including observability,
Mhm.
governance, and remediation and rewind.
That rollback just blew my mind. And like you said, we'll get to that. I'll save that for later, but that is my favorite feature. So the next question I have for you. Teams are building agents on Microsoft Copilot and Amazon Bedrock and other platforms. Each one behaves differently. How does Rubrik Agent Cloud help bring order and consistency across all of these environments?
So this was one of our market observations, which was people say 2025 is the year of agents.
Right,
I think that what we've seen is like the rise of many different agent builder platforms.
right,
Copilot Studio, Agent Force, Bedrock Agent Core, vanilla orchestration frameworks with OpenAI and others. Our observation is that AI agents have actually, thanks to these technologies, it's never been easier to build an agent. It's
right.
actually today, building the agent's no longer the hard part.
You don't even know how to code.
You don't need to. It's
You
a
don't,
natural language prompt. It's
right,
connecting a few tools. What ends up actually being hard is thinking about how do you operate and govern these agents.
right. That's the important part.
In particular, if you're an organizational leader, and to
Right.
your question, some are in Copilot Studio, some are in Bedrock Agent Core, and others. So what we do is we have a gateway solution that allows you to be able to hook into agents regardless of where they're running. But we also build native integrations to the most popular agent building.
Okay.
And so we just announced this week our integration with Bedrock Agent Core for agents that are developed on AWS.
Right.
We have a few other integrations that we've both announced and are also coming up. But that allows us to automatically scan the environments
Right.
across what you have and then provide you a single pane of glass of observability of what agents are running. And then we can also run our governance pillar, just the ability
Right.
to define policies and enforce policies directly on that set.
Very
And
important.
we can rewind, as we were just touching about across the set, correlated with what Rubrik protects. So our view is the market has a lot of these great platforms, but you need a Switzerland-like player
Right.
that is going to be
Right.
that governance control plane across the different organizational technologies that might exist for agents.
Right. And that's really important. Like you said, with the explosion that we've seen with building agents and a lot of these no code tools,
Yeah.
that governance and that oversight layer is critical.
Yeah. In fact, I'm hearing that it's the lack of it is usually, from my experience, the single biggest inhibitor to AI
Right.
progress rather than anything else.
And I bet that's a part of why a lot of the AI projects don't make it to production as
Completely.
well.
I think it's why AI projects don't make it to production, and also why there's this question around ROI on AI
Right,
projects as well.
right,
Today, a lot of AI agents and AI in general is still in read mode.
right,
You give an agent access to chat or maybe to search, but we're quite restrictive in our thought process on giving agents right actions, ability to
right,
actually do tasks on behalf of users. I think we all think that this is where the magic is going to be, and that's where the
right,
ROI is going to be realized.
right,
But the risk profile of doing that feels so great for so many enterprise organizations with the current tooling that they have. And I think
right,
that is actually really holding them back.
right. That's why I see Rubrik Agent Cloud as a game changer
Yeah, I
for
hope so.
this. So the next question, I think what we just talked about is a great lead in to this next question. As agents become more autonomous, guardrails matter more than ever. How does Rubrik Agent Cloud help organizations set boundaries and enforce behavior in real time?
Yes. And so I think this is actually a really important capability. So I want to define guardrails in a minute, but right before that, let me just tell you what I see as the issue in a lot of organizations. A lot of organizations, including Rubrik, we have these policies about how AI should be used or developed inside of a system. For example, agents should be read only.
Hmm.
Agents should never make hiring decisions. Agents should not disclose financial information. Like there's a set of policies
Right,
that get created. How do you actually enforce these policies? In a lot of organizations, the way these policies get enforced is there's an essential AI governance committee that might review agent applications, from time to time. But that's like a people paper process, very heavyweight. It's point in time rather than continuously monitoring.
right.
And it really, I think, slows down how quickly people are able to iterate and build because you want to be able to build at the speed of AI, not at the speed of the biweekly or bi-monthly meeting. And so the first pillar of what we do in Agent Cloud is observability. The second pillar is governance, which I really think about as being able to have guardrails on the inputs and outputs of what are going into your agents.
Okay.
Guardrails are essentially, you can think of them as almost like filters. These filters can be traditional rule systems, but they can also be small language models like themselves
Right.
that are able to look at what a model is taking in and what a model is putting out and be able to actually directly flag any of that behavior or block it itself.
That's awesome.
The really important thing about this is it's actually running on the traffic. It's running on what you're seeing to the agent. So it's not a design documents time approval.
Right.
It's like something that you actually can see deployed into your environment. So that's how we think about making sure that governance actually gets teeth.
Right. That real time piece is really important.
And the trick, I think, with the real time piece, which I hear a lot of times,
Hmm.
is in order to be able to do this in real time, you also need to make sure that the infrastructure and the efficiency is
Right.
great. Don't want to add latency towards the process
Right.
that you're doing. Cost
Exactly.
should be low for all of it. That's where a lot of our historical backgrounds. I was co-founder and CEO of a startup that was acquired by Rubrik this summer called Predabase, and we helped organizations tune and deploy these small models for efficiency. That's where a
Okay.
lot of this is going to be baked in.
That's awesome. Okay, so now we finally get to the piece that I'm most excited about. So, one of the features of Rubrik Agent Cloud that we've mentioned is the ability to reverse unwanted or destructive agent actions. I always say that AI needs a kill switch, kill -9. So, why is rollback such a critical part of responsible AI operations, and what makes your approach so different?
I think Control Z is probably like the most frequently used, keyword combination on my
Right,
laptop. I think let me start by why it's so important, then I'll go into what makes this unique. It's very hard to trust a non-deterministic system like a model to take action on production systems that have real impact if you tell me that I can't reverse that in case something goes wrong. If you think about employees, employees have background checks, they have management systems. All of the IT infrastructure we've developed is around human employees being able to take action and being able to audit actions and others. We lack that same set of controls for AI agents, but it's actually worse because AI agents can also operate at a much faster speed than human
true.
employees can, and potentially with broader breadth as well. And so I think the reason it's important is I don't think IT and security leaders will be comfortable with the level of access that AI needs to be able to really drive ROI and automation
Right.
without some way to be able to have a recourse. I think it's a blocker for why a lot of organizations are there today. And I fully understand why. There was a great example of the production database that was deleted by a coding agent.
Right. Right.
And it's, you have a thought of like, what do I do if that happens in my organization? This, I think, is actually a really unique feature that Rubrik has.
It is.
It combines our background in data backup and data resilience and business continuity with the new AI future.
Right.
And so why Rubrik is really well positioned to be able to structure this is like, we actually have over the last decade plus built the understanding of like, what is the data an organization has? And then what's the metadata, which is like, what is the application context for where all of this goes
Right.
to be able to power recovery. Now, it used to be that recovery was important for natural disaster, fire, flood.
Right.
Then it became that recovery was important for cybersecurity, ransomware, and other types of attacks.
Right.
Now recovery is going to be important for AI-driven, either inadvertent or malicious actions. And I think that Rubrik is really the best positioned company in a lot of ways to be able to actually tackle that slice of the problem set.
And I really like that you're tackling that rollback piece of it because from what I've seen, that's like one of the most overlooked components in a successful AI strategy and rollout.
Well, I think the reason it's overlooked from speaking with folks is they actually didn't even think it was possible. Like
True.
a lot of
Hmm.
when I introduced the feature to a lot of customers, the first reaction is, I didn't know I could do that. And I think it provides an incredible amount of comfort knowing that they
Definitely. Like I said, that is my favorite feature. Okay, we are already seeing cases, and you sort of touched on this, where agents have caused data loss,
Mhm.
misinformation, or exposure of sensitive information. What risk are customers talking to you about most often?
To be frank, Kesha, I feel like customers, I show them risks that could exist. I tell them which is the top of mind for you. The answer is pretty consistently all of them. And
Okay, that's fair.
the reason I say that is I think AI in a lot of ways, it is scary in terms of the fact that the risk profile is not limited. And like, the fact that you might have MCP or model context protocol opening up the different application areas.
Right,
It's no longer like limiting you to just one application, one workflow. It's like in the world of what you could build in Bedrock Agent Core, Copilot Studio, or others, like you can touch a number of different systems. So you have data loss risks, you have data deletion and other risks, you have competitive risks, you have like everything that can be flowed outside. The issue I think is not on the types of risk, it's how do I then manage that in one area?
mm,
Because I can't have
that's true.
17 different platforms to
That's true.
enforce more than 17 different types of risks that exist. And frankly, I think that'll be really difficult unless you're real time and in line in a lot of the ways that the Rubrik Agent Cloud is to be able to actually do both the detection and then the
Mhm.
enforcement for where risks are going to lie.
Okay. So, all of the risks, they say, everything. Well, I'm just thankful that Rubrik Agent Cloud is thinking about all of this. And so a lot of organizations start with a handful of agents,
Yeah.
but the real challenge is scaling agent deployment.
Yeah.
How does Rubrik Agent Cloud support enterprises that want to move from experimentation to that wide deployment?
Yeah. It's something that I've noticed, which I think is really interesting in the AI agent space. Building your first agent, your second agent,
Hmm.
it's kind of like this you're hacking together a bunch of things
Right,
project, right?
right.
And it's fun and it kind of works. I think the scary thing for some organizations is they actually sometimes go from the third, like the first, second, and third might take some months to be able to get through. But then they go from that third agent to their 100th kind of quickly. And it's
Hmm.
back to this idea that Copilot Studio or Bedrock Agent Core, all these
Right,
others have made it easier to
right,
be able to actually build these agents out. And so what I think makes it harder for them to scale is you can govern one agent pretty easily.
right,
If you have one agent in the company and the board asks, what are you doing with AI? Really easy to answer that question.
right,
Same thing if you have two or three, and quite impossible if you have 500 or 1,000.
right.
The Rubrik Agent Cloud provides a single pane of glass that's going to give you an agent inventory first. So the very first question that
I think that's
oftentimes
my second favorite feature.
I actually hear it, and I quite frequently because when I ask somebody who has, like, for example, a board level mandate to be able to provide an auditing capability on what agents are they running, and I ask them how do they do it, almost every single time it's we manually do it. We manually
Mhm.
collect this. We have spreadsheets
Right,
somewhere or the other process. So the agent inventory is automatically populated based on the agents we discover from the different places that we hook into and integrate or through our AI gateway.
mhm,
That allows us to be able to give you that initial view of like, how are you, if you're scaling from 2 to 100, how is that working?
right.
The second is our governance policies can be applied on a platform level, which means you
Okay.
can go ahead and say all agents need to follow
That's
X, Y,
easy.
and Z.
Hmm.
And then the third, of course, is that, anytime any individual agent goes wrong, we have our agent inventory, which gives you this 30,000 foot view across all of your agents. But then we have something we call our agent map, which you can double click into any individual agent, whether it's the
Okay.
first or the 100th, and you can see all the different actions it's taken and, remediate as you need. And so I think the lack of that piece is what makes the scaling challenge hard.
Right.
What makes the scaling challenge hard is like you can't brute force it with committee meetings and paper and process.
Right.
And so I think that's really where we come in to be able to help you scale out.
And that's called agent inventory.
The agent inventory is
Okay.
the kind of lead in, essentially. It's that
Okay.
first view that you can see the different agents that exist. And that's part of our observability pillar.
Okay.
And then, but that's also really the lead in for being able to click in, to be able to do the governance and other things.
I love that.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see this in action.
Well, we can go by the booth later and see it actually
Please.
live right
I
now.
cannot wait to see
Yeah.
that. So you sort of touched on this earlier. Rubrik has years of experience in cyber resilience. How did that history shape the design of Rubrik Agent Cloud for AI operations?
Yeah. And so I think the first thing is Rubrik has been on the front lines of some incredibly difficult to manage situations because it's really around like disaster recovery,
Right.
business continuity,
Right.
when you're hit with a ransomware attack or cybersecurity incident. And so I think when we think about the damage that AI agents can do, like this isn't new as a space to Rubrik. It's
Right.
able to pull on the last decade plus of how have we responded towards incidences previously. I think the two additional pieces, though, beyond that, like I would say cultural and visceral experience, is on the technology asset side.
Okay.
The first is Rubrik has an incredibly rich understanding of what we often call data and metadata internally. The data part's obvious. The metadata we think about as like the actual application context. So it's like, where is this data actually supposed to go in the schema of my Salesforce data or something along
Okay.
those lines? That's what we mean by metadata. Now, in order to be able to build data recovery, we needed to understand that data and metadata together. But in order to be able to protect against cyber, we also needed to add an additional set of capabilities around identity. Because one of the most frequently compromised sources for cyber attacks tends to be the identity system.
Right.
And so
That's true.
Rubrik built a suite of products within the identity space that help us understand who has access to which credentials and what do those credentials have access to underlying those systems. These are really the same primitives that we need in the agentic future, because agents are essentially models and LLMs that are assuming an identity and operating on data and systems of record. And so that, I think, fundamental contextual understanding, as well as essentially the underlying technical capabilities, gave us a nice head start as we were thinking about this problem.
Yeah. I totally think that like Rubrik, based on like your years of experience, like you're the perfect company to build out all of these features for people to be able to scale AI agents.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's a really nice wave to be able to catch.
Right.
And in other ways, when you come into a new company as an acquired startup, you have to kind of form your own thesis on what is this new company. And the way I often think about Rubrik is it's a company that helps enterprises through transformation waves. And the first transformation wave was moving from tape to
Hmm.
digital. And that was, some of the initial backup and recovery products. The second transformation was the shift to cloud. The Rubrik Security Cloud addressed what tended to be one of people's main concerns with the shift to cloud, which is security around like a
Right.
public multi-tenant
Right.
architecture. And then now the third one is going to be AI. And I think, it's perfectly positioned again in terms of how do we think about resilience and risk management in this new wave.
I totally agree. Oh, this is a great question. As agentic systems grow, what new skills do you think IT, security, and AI teams will need to operate them effectively and responsibly?
Yeah. So I think the first skill that IT and security teams need, I think they've actually started to get indoctrinated into quite quickly, which is it's important to understand how these models behave, right?
Right.
So the basics of prompting and what request responses look like, model context protocol and
Mhm.
MCP, what that relates to the tools. Some of those core primitives I think are important to be able to understand. And I think the easiest way to do that now is building an agent. Build
Right.
one, sandbox, and I think you've got a pretty good understanding. Over the medium term, though, I think what's going to be important is how do you operate agents? And I think the two pieces that'll be important there is how do I think about the security governance guardrails for
Mhm.
being able to operate these at scale? That's going
Right.
to become one of the new skills that people are going to need to know how to do. And there's going to be products like the Rubrik Agent Cloud that are going to try and attack that directly. And then I think there's a second piece, which is like, how are you going to evaluate agents
Mm,
as well, or evaluate AI to make sure it's really being corresponded to the business impact. And so,
mhm.
like, I think we want to make sure that we're pointing AI in the way that can actually help the businesses and the economy. And so
Right.
we want to make sure that becomes a skill people think about too.
That evaluation piece is really important. Just give, and also being able to give feedback.
Right.
Yeah, that's really important. So, what does trusted AI operations mean to you? And where does Rubrik Agent Cloud fit into that vision for the future?
So I would actually almost flip that and saying, I
Hmm.
think the vision for Rubrik Agent Cloud is to provide trusted AI operations. And so
Right.
if I think about one word I want people to have is I want to increase the relative trust in AI over the next, 12, 18, 24, however long it takes.
Right.
But I want to increase the relative trust that we have in AI. And I think we need new systems and products and tooling to be able to do that.
That's true.
What trusted AI actually means to me though, is I think pretty like simple and really think about it in two prongs. The first is I have a way to be able to define and control AI in the way that
Hmm.
it's supposed to work. So I
Right.
have like a system where I can say, these are the things that I wanted you to do. These are the things I don't want you to do. And I have like
Hmm.
some understanding of how that works.
Right.
And the second is I have something to do when that inevitably fails.
Right.
Rubrik always in the early days had this mentality or this saying called assume breach, which
Right.
was this idea that you're going to do 100 different things to prevent an attack, and you should,
Right.
but something will happen at some point. It's a part of being human, and we need to be able to be resilient in that setting. And I think it's the same things with trusted AI. You need control and you need
Hmm.
the ability to really not be dead in the water if and when something goes wrong,
And you need that rewind.
which is really the second
Yes.
piece. Exactly.
So, what is coming next for Rubrik in the AI agent space, and how should enterprises start preparing now?
Yes. So we're just getting started. You saw a
Right.
little bit of like what we've announced here. Word Preview actually just started to deploy with some of our customers that are onboarding and understanding what it looks like now to get the observability and the governance features as well as Rewind. And so I think we're going to continue to invest in this direction to accelerate enterprise AI. That's going to be the direction that we continue to go into. And I think our view is the acceleration of enterprise AI is going to come from this monitoring, governance, remediation
Right.
pillars. We've announced a few integrations already. Copilot Studio a few weeks ago, Bedrock Agent Core this week.
Right.
You can expect more announcements that will be coming as well. And really, our intent is to start to see organizations make that move from agents that feel sandboxed or maybe
Hmm.
read only mode to actually starting to take meaningful action.
Yeah. I'm really excited about the future and where this whole AI and agents, where it's all going. And I'm just super excited that Rubrik is leading out in this space. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I did not ask you?
Just that I think that this is a really important space to start to learn a little bit about because if it's slowing down maybe anyone in the organization, there might be an opportunity to actually go a lot faster.
Hmm.
So if you're curious to learn a little bit more, there's actually a great Agent Cloud webpage on our website at rubrik.com. Demo videos, white papers, other resources to get started. That might be an easy place to be able to begin the journey.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Keisha. Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.